Hello, everybody. We are about to go live officially. Just letting the dog out real quick. Gonna grab me a water, and then we'll be ready to roll. A lot of stuff to talk about today, of course. Crazy day yesterday. We finally got to see some proper robot action. Hexadecimators going nuts. Cornholio, Team freaking Wetware won something. A legit win. I think it might be their first one ever. I don't know. We'll talk about all that here in a second. Hope y'all are having a great Easter weekend. All right, here we go. All right. As soon as I'm about to start, I hear my dog enter in the room. You coming in here, Bella? You spectating? There you are. Oh, we're hanging out here, Bella. All right. And here we go. No more sitting around. There we are. Forgot to take off my I realized I just forgot to take off my glasses. I guess it's too little too late now, huh? Hello, everybody, and welcome to another TCC Live here for ROBOGAMES Weekend. I am your host, as always, Sterling Brown, a.k.a. Sterling TXTG. You can find me on Instagram. This, of course, is the Combot Collective, bringing everything you want to know from the world of robot combat, from the heavyweight class to the flyweight class, from BattleBots to the live circuit. ROBOGAMES is now in full swing. We had a crazy delay during day one. We talked about that a little bit during Robot Combat tonight. If anyone was here for the recordings on our Discord server, that was some good fun. We'll talk about that a little bit today. We also had a much smoother day two. They started a little bit behind once again. I'm guessing they're going to be starting behind for a lot of these streams and delays. It's just the ROBOGAMES way this year, apparently. It's all good. The fights are still going along. They're going smoothly enough. Enough robots have dropped out that I think they're back on pace to have a full event, I guess you could say. I'm not sure, but things have been good so far. A lot smoother in day two, that's for damn sure. We had, 5 fights during day one. Wasn't the most exciting. We only got started at 9 p.m. Central Time. Much better today. We had 20, 25 or so fights happen on stream. Had some huge moments that we're going to be talking about. A lot of new breakout robots, copyright infringement, Manta, of course, freaking Manta. We'll be talking about those two robots here. Hexadecimator's going on a very nostalgic run. 2-0 with 2 KOs to start off their year. What year is it? I don't know. Might be 2001. We also have Team Wetware, Team freaking Wetware, the team with so much infamy behind them. You know, the MLG compilations, robots like Abattoir and Mr. Bone Stripper, and so many robots in the past that Ray Scully had trouble getting going. And they finally, with their lightweight Cornholio, after 3 delays and nonstop work in the pits day before yesterday during day 1 with help from Madiator, they got a legitimate win against Team Valkyrie, D6 Robotics, questionable designs, whatever they're going for this event. Their clusterbot kickflip. And, you know, let's start off with that. We'll go ahead and switch over to, not that, the original sin, not looking too good, we got to admit. Where's my, why don't I have a feed right here? Uh-oh, not that. There we go. That was bizarre. See if we can go ahead and start pulling up the brackets to start talking about some of these fights. I hope everybody's doing all right today. Hope everyone had a fun first day of ROBOGAMES, or first 2 days of ROBOGAMES. We made a post on the Combot Collective just before our live stream today, hyping up just how good Hexadecimator has been during these first 2 days of combat. 1 knockout win on each day. And here's the post right here, of course. 2 wins, 0 losses with 2 knockout finishes. Same start that they had at BattleBots 3.0, their debut event, where they went all the way to the Final 4, if I remember correctly. You know, they started off at 2023 was a knockout on Puck and Doom. 2001, it was Forkenstein and That Good R&D. We'll see if they can keep it going, because Hexadecimator went far, but as I mentioned on that post, that robot's going to be fighting some tough competition. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. We keep getting ahead of ourselves. Let's pull up RoboCore. Let's pull up this bracket here. Do you think we have the 12-pound bracket up? I would like to see that. Or not 12-pound bracket. All the smaller bots? Not yet. Lame. Haven't actually had a chance to look at a lot of this stuff yet. Because, yes, I feel like a lot of what we did during the day 1 kickoff live stream went null and void, because pretty much a few hours after we did that live stream doing all of our bracketology and stuff, they reshuffled the brackets again, which kind of sucks. Half the field is pulled out once again. We already talked about that a little bit during Robot Combat tonight. Apparently, all of the Indian teams had to deal with visa issues. Team Pricks got their visa issue only a day before the event, too little too late. A lot of the other teams like Team Xenon and the like, Team NS1, they all got theirs. I don't even know if they've gotten theirs yet. So that was unfortunate. We saw a lot of regulars. A lot of the Brazilian teams suffered the same issue with, I guess, their visas or their own travel. Trinkabots did not show up. So I guess my prediction for Stonks, not accurate. I guess I got to go with Kowalski winning the 150-gram class. So I don't know where the brackets are for that event. I'm a little curious about what's going on there. Any of the small bots events for that matter. No brackets at all. I guess we can do a little bit of research on this stream later and see what's going on. But it is a bit strange. But yeah, half the robots are gone, whether they be international or American. A lot of the international competitors are gone. But not all of them. We know that the Japanese combat team in the 1-pound class had shown up, so that's exciting to see. I haven't seen any of their action as of yet. Unfortunately, the live stream for the small bots competition, while, you know, shouts to Team Scorpius and Team Malice for running that, hasn't been the best to stream. We got to admit, day 1's footage was very finicky. It was like watching Robot Combat on PowerPoint. Day 2 was much better, but I wish we knew what robots were fighting. I wish there was like a proper overlay. I get it's probably an impromptu stream. And I wish that, I don't know. The cameras are also in a weird spot. That's another thing. But we have seen some fights from there. We saw Wormhole pick up an impressive win on day 1 on that stream. We saw Lynx pick up a win during day 2. I'm sure Lynx is just going to end up winning this whole thing. But I got to say, Lynx versus Wormhole, that would be an exciting 3-pound championship. Two very promising NHRL robots. One's literally the champion. One's got a lot of future in that event. But hey, that's the 3-pound class. Let's talk 60-pound class here. What we got the bracket on screen. You can just hear my voice slowly deteriorate over these streams. I got one more to go after this one today. Tomorrow night. By the way, yes, our next live stream for ROBOGAMES, our final live stream will be happening after everything is shut down. It is going to be our post-game show stream. It's going to be late at night. Probably not too long, maybe an hour. I'm going to be pretty tired, and I know all of you guys will be as well. But we'll be congratulating our champions, talking about all the notable robots during that. So stay tuned for that tomorrow night after you have your awesome Easter. Hopefully everyone has an awesome Easter. Don't get caught up too much watching ROBOGAMES tomorrow, at least in the morning. You know, enjoy time with your family, all of that. I mean, ROBOGAMES probably won't start off till 3, 4 Central Time, so everyone should have time to, you know, sneak in the egg hunting, eat some good Texas barbecue for breakfast. That's at least what we're going to be doing at our family home. And all that good stuff. But yes, ROBOGAMES talk, ROBOGAMES time. First fight here, Max Q versus Rusty Cage in the 60-pound class. Rusty Cage, I believe, the last standing Mexican representative. I think there's one maybe in the 1-pound class. But this is the only one we're seeing on stream. That drum not really working, unfortunately. It turned on after the fight, which is great. You know, after the robot was dead and smoking, not working. Ended up losing here to Max Q on a tap out around 1, if I remember right. Max Q very much reminded me of, you know, your classic BattleBots 5.0 pushing, ramming lightweights, kind of like the Wireless Wonder, if people remember that bot, or the Patriot. You know, just 4-wheel drive, silver, 2 big forks on the front. That robot had some pretty impressive rams. Put up a good fight against Federal MT, but we'll get to that in a second, because speaking of Federal MT, when this was, you know what, let me see if I can, no, because then we would just be watching downtime if I try putting the ROBOGAMES stream in the corner instead of just the bracket. Federal MT versus Bad Dog was a bit of an odd one. Bad Dog was, when we were expecting Bad Dog signing up for this event, let's see what the picture is. If I am correct, it's going to be the 2010 picture. Come on, yeah. That's the robot we were expecting on the right there at ROBOGAMES. Bad Dog, 2-wheel drive, horizontal spinning disc. We saw that robot fight at ROBOGAMES 2010, way back. Completely different look for this. That robot was big, it was boxy, it was white, 2-wheel drive. Kind of reminded me of Sweeney Todd from BattleBots, not BattleBots, Robot Wars 2016. And it had I don't know, it was a very weird weapon. It was like the team they looked up vertical spinner. Somehow they saw Blood Moon first, and they were like, that's it. That's what we're copying. Because the vertical spinners on this robot, it had 2 up front. They had like 2 inches of purchase. They didn't have much purchase. They were just cubes of metal that were spinning on the front of this robot. Weren't even spinning for most of the fight. It was a homemade build, handmade build by a couple of grandpas. I love that. I mean, these guys looked like they showed up in a 1995 Cadillac. I was in the BattleBots Update Gator Robotics chat for most of the, not Gator Robotics, Zeta Gator, for most of the ROBOGAMES festivities the past 2 days, and someone made that comment. I thought that was funny. Old group of old guys, not the most impressive robot, but I'm happy to see them there. You know, with what's going on in the lightweight and middleweight class, any robot that's still competing deserves its kudos. I mean, shit, dude. We have 7 lightweights and 8 middleweights. I don't know what happened. We had over 20 a week ago, but that's just the way of the sport. Talking about this fight, Federal MT, as I mentioned, we'll go ahead and pull up the graphic right here. There it is. I don't think we've had any medals delivered to do a medal count just yet. Federal MT's championship history, it's definitely something to watch out for. 3 wins, 2 losses in their first ROBOGAMES. That was their worst performance. Gold medal in 2013, silver in 2015, gold in 2016, silver in 2017, gold in 2018. They're alternating, but I don't think they're going to have another silver year with the level of the field. I mean, right now, we'll talk about Cornholio, the other robot that advanced in this round here in a second. I don't know what's left for this robot to fight, you know. Rusty Cage ain't going to beat it. Bad Dog ain't going to beat it. Kickflip certainly ain't going to beat it. Max Q was probably its best chance, and they beat that. We got Cornholio up next. If Cornholio can beat Federal MT, put on a fucking parade. And Twister, who we still haven't seen yet. All we know about Twister is that it comes from Team Swamp Thing. Tough couple of days for Team Swamp Thing. They are already out of the heavyweight bracket. We'll get to that later. But at least they can now focus on the lightweight for this event. Very curious to see what this robot ends up looking like. We'll know later today, that's for sure. And yes, Cornholio versus Twister. Couple of old heads fighting there. Shouts to Cornholio, though. We talked about it at the very, very, very top of the stream a couple minutes ago. This was a unique fight. We didn't know about Kickflip entering this event. It is a two-wheel drive cluster bot from D6 Robotics, part of the Valkyrie team. Kind of tell by the colors. We got that beautiful teal spinner and a purple spinner as well on the side. They're classic verts. They really didn't get much traction. They were not working. They had to get pulled out of the fight twice before we could finally do this fight. It was sort of like an overarching story of the day. They just cannot get these robots working, which is ironic when you're facing Cornholio. I mean, this whole thing's been ironic. This has been the great culling of RoboGames 2023. We have seen nearly 50% of the field pull out, whether it be, months ago, weeks ago, or days ago in the cases of Riptide and Slammo. You know which robot hasn't pulled out? Freaking Team Wetware with their full body spinner Cornholio. Obviously, it had some struggles. As Mattiator mentioned on a few places, I think they mentioned it on a couple Discord servers. They mentioned it on the BattleButts update Twitch. He even while he's working on Bullion, he's been helping Ray Scully with Cornholio and the wiring pretty much for hours on end, trying to make sure this robot got working and was ready to fight for this matchup. It paid off. All that hard work paid off because this was probably, as unironic as this to say, and if you don't know what Team Wetware is all about, or Team Artifice as they call themselves now, these guys have been around since 1998. They have had machines like Abattoir. They've had machines like Mr. Bone Stripper that have showed up for pretty much every single BattleBots season. They showed up for numerous robot combat events after BattleBots, and just about every single time they had the forfeit because they couldn't get the bot working. They were accepted into BattleBots 2016 with Clockwork L'Orange, if you remember that robot. They sent a whole video team over to do a vignette for them, kind of like how they used to do in the ABC days, and it didn't show up. Showed up incomplete, not working. They kicked them out, and then Cornholio's appeared at RoboGames a few times in the past and has had 0-2 performances, usually featuring a bunch of forfeits on the way there. We've seen it enter the arena a couple of times, but usually it doesn't spin up. It dies very quickly. No. I mean, I can unironically say in a 25-year history of Team Wetware, what happened last night against Kickflip was probably one of their finest moments, one of their greatest performances. Cornholio was spinning the whole fight. It was driving the whole fight. And it was doing destructive hits the whole fight. It was taking wheels off of Kickflip. It was just taking out the weapon systems on Kickflip. It was... Sorry, saw my dog doing something. It was insane. I'm very impressed with how they did. Oh my god, y'all are still looking at Federal MT. My bad. There we go. Let's go back to that. Yes, very, very impressive run here by Cornholio. But that's just day one. We'll see if they can keep it going. But at least Ray Scully has had this one moment in the sun. And I'm really glad I was on the BattleBots update live stream when it was happening, because I got to see Zeta Gator himself have the same reaction. Like, oh my god, Cornholio's winning. And he's winning by a lot. Holy shit. Very impressive. Shouts to Cornholio. In the losers bracket, we have Rusty Cage taking on Bad Dog. That should be a riveting judge's decision fight. Rusty Cage should take that, assuming it doesn't break down again. We're still going to... Oh, wait. We got Kickflip versus Max Q happening in losers A1. That should be an easy win for Max Q. They should be able to just drive those robots all around the arena. Apparently, there was some drive issue Kickflip was dealing with during the first fight. They were supposed to be, according to Leanne Cushing. By the way, it was awesome to see Leanne Cushing after a year. They were supposed to be a 4-wheel drive robot. They couldn't get it done in time, so they tried to do a rear-wheel drive for this fight, and it didn't really factor in well. As we saw, both those robots were half working, super sluggish. So after the fight, Leanne was interviewed by their interview team, or their interview lady, who I keep calling Winona Ryder, fake Winona Ryder. Shouts to you, Ann Kid. And they said, or Leanne said, well, we're going to move the drive power to the front wheel, so hopefully we can get more force, more torque that way. We'll see if it works out. Max Q is probably the fastest, most aggressive robot in this lightweight field, so I can't see it going too well. Should be an easy run to the losers finals for Max Q, assuming Twister isn't anything too crazy, and I think they'll be fine. I'm definitely expecting a Federal MT Max Q rematch for the finals. Federal MT versus Max Q had a pretty solid round 2 matchup in the lightweight class. Both robots back and forth. Federal MT actually didn't have its weapon working during that Bad Dog fight. It was pretty much a pushing match for Federal MT versus Bad Dog. It was funny. They actually had an interview about Mono Duck, Uriah's team mascot, and the Uriah captain at this event, I don't know his name, I know they have a bunch of captains, said that the only reason why Federal MT wasn't working during that Bad Dog fight was because nobody was holding Mono Duck. So he made the promise to the interviewer and to all of us that he ain't letting go of Mono Duck so they can win all their fights. And hey, since he said that, Team Uriah's spinners have gone 2-0 in terms of walking in the fights with that spinner working perfectly fine. Very impressive run by them so far. But yeah, they moved on. Had a decent judge's decision match against Max Q. One that you guys should definitely watch. It was a good battle of control and aggression, power. Federal MT won that, so it's in the winner semifinals to take on the winner of Cornholio versus Twister. You still got to think Federal MT going to be the winner of this class. Now let's move on to the middleweight division. We're going briskly through all this. Not really too much to talk about. We talked about all the big heavyweight fights day one on Robot Combat tonight, so we'll be brisk with those. But let's take a look here. What do we got? First fight to kick off this entire middleweight competition was Who's Your Daddy versus Mortician. Of course, this was like the battle of the truncated heavyweights. Who's Your Daddy, of course, a 120-pound version of Regent Scotsman. Mortician, the return of hardcore robotics in the middleweight class, a 120-pound version of Tombstone / Last Rites. Justin Billings behind the wheel of Mortician, while Ray Billings is behind the wheel of Stink Eye, who we'll talk about later. Gotta admit, I'm still not very impressed with Justin Billings' driving. We saw Remar's All-Stars 2019. He kind of drove Tombstone into a corner and forced himself to lose there. Wasn't very impressive with driving and against Hypershock at Remar's All-Stars 2022 when we all saw the bootleg video from the fans from that event. Still no Remar's All-Stars, by the way. What the fuck, BattleBots? Here we are, again, taking on Who's Your Daddy with Mortician. The first thing this guy does is he spins up his robot and drives directly into the wall. Thankfully, it's fine. He survived. The robot, still won the fight by landing some very solid strikes to Who's Your Daddy now, but it certainly could have been a better performance for the guys. They took on copyright infringement in the second round. A lot of potential with that robot. We'll talk about that. Well, right now, it took on General, my pick, my easy favorite to win this whole class in the first round. Copyright infringement, of course, coming from Team Ugandugu, a group which we've seen have a lot of success at ROBOGAMES events in the past, 2016, 2017, 2018, with various lightweights and middleweights. I think this is their first drum bot, but don't quote me on that. I believe there used to be a horizontal spinner team primarily. They took on the defending champion and my pick to win the class, General, here in the first round. And this was a very, very impressive victory, I gotta say. Both robots were working. The spinners were going perfectly fine on both ends. Both robots landed some solid strikes, but copyright infringement, that robot's a freaking brick, dude. It's not dying to anything. It is insane. It is impressive, and it's still hasn't lost. We'll get to that Mortician fight in a second. But yeah, here against General, it managed to knock out General about halfway through the fight. Really impressive performance there. And then in this fight against Mortician, sending it to the winner would go to the winner semifinals. it knocked out Mortician too. And if I remember correctly, it sent Mortician into a plume of smoke. I don't know what's cooking in this copyright infringement group. I don't know if it's necessarily impressed the BattleBots team, being it is a silver two-wheel drive drum bot, but certainly impressed me. It's probably going to take a medal at this event with the momentum it's putting together here. It's going to be taking on the winner of Cat Kong versus Wolverine, and let's get to those fights next here. Cat Kong, of course, pretty much a two-wheel drive version of Mad Catter, driven by the Mad Catter team. Martin Mason, of course, the captain, took on BMF, and this one really confused me at first, as some of you guys might remember a couple weeks back, in fact, the Combot Collective made a news post saying that Team Yeti was coming back to the RoboGames competitions after skipping 2022. In terms of any event, we last saw them at BattleBots 2021. They weren't bringing Yeti, but they were bringing Stewart back, a robot that we have not seen compete since RoboGames 2017. Wasn't called Stewart, though. It didn't have the drum, had a very similar shape, but a vertical spinner this time instead. No Greg Gibson was there, but we did see James Arluck and Christian Carlberg behind the controls of this robot. So we at least had a little bit of Team Yeti representation, but this wasn't Stewart. This robot was called BMF. Not sure why they went with their name change from Stewart. I mean, to go from Stewie to Stewart to very, nice, generous names to BMF. That's a bit of a switch. It certainly didn't look like a BMF here, though. It got its ass beat by Cat Kong. 2 strikes, 2 a tap out. I believe it was a 12-second matchup from buzzer to buzzer. Cat Kong's a real deal, though it has 2, chunky front wedgelets, which got right under Steven, or BMF, whatever you want to call it. Tore it apart, easy KO win there. And then we had Professor Scrap versus Wolverine. This was a bit of a depressing one. Professor Scrap is essentially one of the field fillers of this middleweight class. Without them, this would just be a 7-robot event. Like the lightweights, instead we're working with 8 here. And Professor Scrap is like some weird hybrid of Rusty, the Abuelan Overlord, and Fat Boy 10. It is a box on wheels with another box on top of it, with a cardboard box on top of that, a large lance, which looks a little suspicious, I got to admit, and 2 wedges up front, which they had to take off due to, I believe, ground clearance or traction issues, which meant this robot entered this fight against Sierra College's Wolverine as literally a wedgeless pile of boxes on wheels. Even Fat Boy 10 had a wedge at least. I mean, geez. Wolverine, of course, comes from Sierra College. They are RoboGames regulars from Washington. Horizontal spinner, very rounded shape on the rear, so it's hard to get purchase on this robot. One of the bigger middleweights, according to commentator Stephen Falk. By the way, shouts to Stephen Falk. His commentary has been great. He's still the smartass that he's always been. He gets oddly romantic about robot combat, which is adorable. It's sweet. And then he goes on the most random stories, talking about like dancers and baseball players and business cards and stuff. He's wholesome, though. He's got a really good voice to listen to, so shouts to Stephen Falk. He made a comment, though, saying that he thought Wolverine was a heavyweight at first with how big it was. It's a chunky robot. It's got that big, it takes advantage of armor when you look at the wheels. A lot of gap between the chassis, the wheels, and the core of the robot. That horizontal spinner looks beefy. It's a solid robot, but, Wolverine's made it far in the past semifinals, I want to say in 2014, 2015, but it's usually the bridesmaid, never the bride. Got an easy win against Professor Scrap, but when taking on Cat Kong later on today, might be kind of ugly, I got to admit. I wouldn't mind seeing Wolverine, pull off the upset in this battle of Washington robots, but you got to think it's going to be Cat Kong versus copyright infringement in the winners semifinals. One of those robots will go into the grand final. Shouts to copyright infringement, though. By the looks of this, they've already guaranteed themselves a medal. Looks like it's going to be a USA sweep of the podium, though, because let's look at this losers bracket. This is where things get a little bit spicy. We talked about the winners bracket. BMF versus Professor Scrap has not happened. What has happened, though, Who's Your Daddy versus General. And I had another Robot Combat head, Zasa, ask me. I had to go to an Easter event, so I missed the second half of the stream live. I had to catch it afterwards. He asked me, what did you think of Who's Your Daddy Now versus General? And I was like, was it a good fight? I don't know what you want me to think of this. He was like, well, it's the last fight, so be ready. So, yes, it was. Last fight of the day. solid back and forth fights. Who's Your Daddy Now had some good shoves, some good slams, some good rams. General, in my opinion, dominated the fight. I don't know, dominated is a strong word. It was a close fight, but had control of the fight. It was also driving General. It was also driving Who's Your Daddy Now around. It was also being aggressive, and it was doing actual damage, something Who's Your Daddy Now cannot do. But I've said it time and time again, and during 2 fights during this day 2 of RoboGames, it really made it clear. I've always said that RoboGames judging criteria is like the anti-BattleBots. I think there have been, 3, 4, maybe 5 times since we've started these BattleBots breakdown episodes, whether they be on Robot Combat Tonight or their own thing. There's been so many times where I've been like, if this was RoboGames, the other robot would have won because they love their control bots. They love their control bots more than anything in the world over there at RoboGames. And yes, on a close decision, Who's Your Daddy Now won this fight. General, one of the greatest middleweights of all time, I believe the defending champion, 0-2, eliminated. So Brazil will not be taking a medal home in the middleweight class. This is the worst performance General has ever had. This is a robot that we've seen dominate in Brazil at events like RoboCore, a Winter Challenge, taken numerous silver and gold medals home from RoboGames in years past. It's been around as long as Federal MT, and you saw that history. It's insane what's going on here for the Uriah guys. Mono Duck, they were holding Mono Duck. The robot was working, but you can only do so much with the judges. That's really disappointing for them. So that's where we sit right now. Copyright infringement in the winners semifinals. Mortician waiting for its opponent in BMF versus Professor Scrap so we could see the Yeti versus Tombstone rematch of sorts. And it's funny, I forgot to mention that Cat Kong versus BMF, a rematch of Team Yeti versus Team Mad Catter from BattleBots 2021, went about the same way. Team Mad Catter tore apart the Alaskan Assassins here. Wasn't even close, really. But BMF will at least get a pass to take on Professor Scrap in the second round. Should be an easy win, assuming that they can get the robot working and they don't have to forfeit. Who's Your Daddy Now? Mortician, probably in a collision course for the losers finals, unless maybe they have to fight Cat Kong or Wolverine. We'll see how it goes. That's where we sit in the lightweight class. Now that General is gone, I will say my prediction is dead. I did not predict this right, but if I have to make a day 3 prediction, I don't know. Cat Kong? I'm going to go with Cat Kong. I'm going to go with my heart and say Cat Kong. And what's up, Chad New? I should have brought Rocket, though. Yeah, hindsight's 2020. When we were all looking at the RoboGames signups, we were all, even with pullouts, we were still expecting, at least a field of 15 robots in these lightweight and middleweight classes. I don't think anybody could have predicted this. I didn't predict this. I'm sure David Calkins didn't predict this, poor guy. But hey, bring if there's a RoboGames 2024, bring Rocket. Bring that robot because I love flippers, and Rocket is such a sick robot. Hey, Kevin from Team Widowmaker. What's up, guys? Glad you all can come in for the live stream. Not too long today. I think we'll go a little bit over an hour. I say, not too much to talk about. A lot of the robots have pulled out. We've already got a lot of the hype out of the way. But that's where we sit right now. I think Cat Kong's probably our favorite for the middleweight class. We'll have to see how it goes. We'll probably do a little bit of research. Maybe we can find the antweight, beetleweight, and fleaweight brackets somewhere. I mean, they have to be somewhere. They're following these in some place. But let's get to the big boys real quick and talk about the heavyweight division. A lot of bots. How many bots, in fact, ended up we having after all the pullouts and all the BS? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 heavyweights still isn't that bad. So at least RoboGames has that. Probably one of their better showings in terms of heavyweight fields, to be honest, even after all the pull-ups. And yes, Manta. Oh my God. It's a real shame. Where is Manta on this bracket? There we are. Banana runs after getting that bye. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves, but yeah. Oh my God, Manta, right? We know that Team Tanto tried to play with that robot under the name Drago at BattleBots 2022, and it was really unfortunate. I mean, It was a four-wheel drive drum bot. Doesn't exactly inspire on its own, but the thing they were billing themselves as a Team Malice former member from Arizona. That's nice and all, except that there was a more unique robot which also ran the narrative of former Team Malice member from Arizona by the name of Banshee. So that was a bummer that they didn't get in. But I mean, I heard rumors that the BattleBots team was at this event on day 2. They had to have seen machines like the Emperor and Manta, and they had to have been impressed, especially with Manta. I mean, holy cow. That drum was ripping apart Big Dill. Like I said, let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. Talking about the inaugural fight of the event, we mentioned it a little bit on Robot Combat tonight. Stink Eye versus Bullion, the kickoff in the big arena. Not the most exciting fight. Stink Eye looked strong here. A couple solid strikes on Bullion. Took the W. Bullion, of course, one of the 3 Canadian representatives in this heavyweight tournament. It was made by my buddy Mattiator, buddy of many people. He's an awesome guy. He helped Ray Scully get Cornholio working after he finished his own robot. Just shows the person he is. As I mentioned on Robot Combat tonight, he actually DM'd me a little over a week ago saying, hey, Bullion's about ready. We're on crunch time. We've been working on this robot literally down to the final week. But if you have anything you want to know about the robot, shoot it to me. And yeah, he compared it to, like a Kiloamp tribute style robot. And I would say it did that, 2 big wheels, big ramming power. Unfortunately, it couldn't get the job done against Stink Eye. Straight to the losers bracket where Stink Eye would take on Chaos 3, a robot which got a bye. We'll talk about that fight in a second. Raging Scotsman got a bye. Swamp Thing got a bye. Ziggy Jr. versus Whomper, a.k.a. Lucky versus Whiplash. We talked about it a little bit yesterday on Robot Combat tonight as well. Huge win for Ziggy, a.k.a. Lucky here. Thursday was just a big day for Lucky in general. On BattleBots, it knocked out Shredder Bro with a toaster slot KO. And then 2 hours later on, live on RoboGames, picked up one of its biggest wins ever against a very game Whiplash, running the lifter configuration with one of the best drivers in the world, Matthew Vesquez, behind the wheel. Such a great performance there. Even though I still got to say, I think Whiplash might have deserved that win. If I was a judge, I would have picked Whiplash to win that fight. But like I said, with the control rules that RoboGames seems to abide by, who knows? I mean, both those robots only flipped each other once during the exchange. Maybe they saw something I didn't. But Lucky did manage to advance. They picked up 14 TCC points on Thursday, taking on the other Canadian robot, Crash and Burn, round 2. We'll come back to that. Emperor, Cataclysm, we'll come back to that. Hexy D, oh my boy Hexadecimator. Let's pull up this picture again. I'm so proud of this robot. When Team Whoop-Ass brought this robot as a surprise entrant in 2018, we all thought we'd have the nostalgia pop, and that was going to be about it. Not much else to celebrate there, and Hexadecimator kind of followed that trend up. 0-2. The most exciting fight was one against Lucky where he got caught under the wall. Jeez. I don't know what they did over the past 5 years, but, I mean, the body of Hexy D looks the same. That flipper ain't the same. My goodness. They were able to flip themselves out of the wall during their battle against Doom. We see right here. We'll get back to that. But during this first fight against Puck, a robot that was once sponsored by US Bank, fun fact, they flipped them over in 5 seconds, and that could have been it. We could have had great shades to Shark Bite versus Hexy D, Frisbee versus Hexy D. Just like Sawblaze versus Hydra on the same day, while Peck was almost countered out, Hexadecimator decided, you know what? Let's get some work in. Flipped that robot 4 more times, went 4 for 6 on flip attempts. Very, very impressive performance there for a Hexy D to start off the week. But that was against a 2-wheel drive wedge bot. We'll see how they did against Doom. Well, I mean, you can see how they did against Doom there. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's go ahead and go back to other fights that happened. Probably the most intriguing fight from round 1, Banana Runt, a.k.a. Big Dill, taking on King Crab, formerly known as Defender. This was a very good judo fight. Both these robots just locking up, pushing each other back and forth, jockeying for position. There was no clear winner. 2 X Factors ended up deciding this one. 1, a small piece of King Crab fell off early in the fight. 2, beautiful suplex mid-match by Big Dill grabbed King Crab, threw them over, and then while they were behind them, did a Pharma Slap style ram, just slamming rear first King Crab into the wall. It was a close fight, not a split decision, but a close fight, and Big Dill will win that one. That sent them from 62 to 33 in the TCC overall rankings. Big jump. Manta got a bye. LazyBot got a bye. I am so disappointed in LazyBot. We'll get to that in a second. Terratops got a bye. White Rabbit got a bye. Original Sin got a bye. So let's talk about winners round 2 here. Stink Eye versus Chaos 3. Chaos 3, the driver of that robot, another person who follows TCC, watched our videos on our ROBOGAMES preview series, told us a little bit about the robot and build up. We were all very excited for him, but hopes were low just because Chaos number 1 and Chaos number 2, they really weren't the most impressive robots. They looked bare bones. The weapon didn't have much power. The drive left a lot to be desired. Well, after that 5-year gap, they must have taken some serious robot courses. Chaos 3 looked like a genuine fighting robot. At least at this point so far in the event, it's looked damn good. Fought Stink Eye for its first battle for ROBOGAMES 23 after receiving a bye. You're taking on Ray Billings with his brand new robot. You have to be intimidated. Stink Eye, though, you know, it's funny. The Great Pumpkin, another former Ray Billings robot, actually now Swamp Thing, used to run every single event with this massive, cartoony, sometimes inflatable, sometimes plastic pumpkin on their robot. And everyone was always like, is that going to get in the way? Is that going to screw up their invertibility or something? And each time, that was proven not to be the fact. So when people, including myself and Zeta Gator, were like, ooh, why does Stink Eye have this big satellite dish looking thing on this robot? This might get in the way. I was like, I dismissed it because I was like, well, Great Pumpkin had one and it never bothered them, so I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it will just collapse whenever it flips over and things will be well. Nope. This was a big comeback victory here by Chaos 3, probably the biggest for JCOS Robotics ever in terms of victory prestige here. Stink Eye was driving and dominating most of the fight, landed some solid strikes to Chaos 3, which killed its drive incredibly early in the battle. And after, some jockeying for position, looking for a good strike, Stink Eye also having its own issue. Apparently that wedge, a little bit too steep. We saw them try to fix it in their matchup against Piranha, which we'll get to here in a few minutes. Ended up, just not working out. And while they were in the corner, Chaos 3, while still, just driving or off screen here, not able to do anything, this robot hits Stink Eye and sticks it straight on its ass, caught on the Stink Eye itself, and wins the fight via knockout. Chaos picks up some big-time KO points on the TCC overall rankings with that one. It was very impressive, and they moved on to this next round of the winner's bracket. Who would have thought they would be taking on the winner of a match we saw on Thursday, Raging Scotsman versus Swamp Thing. This was a disappointing one. Swamp Thing's run in the heavyweight class of ROBOGAMES definitely cursed. I feel so bad for Rick Rust because I know he wanted this event to be the breakout show for a robot that he's been hyping up for about a year now. Raging Scotsman versus Piranha. Swamp Thing landed a couple solid strikes early on, chiseling at the underside of Raging Scotsman, and then Scotsman drove it right into a wall. Piranha doesn't have feeder wedges or forks, but it has this weird front beak thing, which has some good ground game to it, but too much ground game. This thing got wedged right under the arena wall. It took 4 people to pull it out, and by the time it was pulled out, they'd done so much rocking and crowbarring to it and messing with it that Rick Rust thought that probably screwed up the robot a little bit, because after they finally got it free, they turned it on and nothing worked. Couldn't get it started. They had to tap out. Raging Scotsman advanced through that blue ball of a fight, to be quite honest. Well, I'm setting up for Chaos 3 versus Raging Scotsman. Another underwhelming fight, to be honest, but we'll get back to that. Ziggy versus Crash and Burn. Lucky versus Crash and Burn, I should say. This was the all-Canadian showdown. For some reason, ROBOGAMES is billing Lucky as a U.S. robot. I'm going to tell you this right now. I don't care if Mark Demers is my neighbor. Lucky is a Canadian robot. It reminds me of the ABC reboot days of BattleBots when Complete Control was in the field and they were saying that robot was from LA. Boy, I don't care where that robot's from. Complete Control will always be, in my heart, a Canadian robot. You know what I mean? Anyway, Ziggy versus Crash and Burn. This was a very, very solid fight. One of the more entertaining fights of the day 2, I would say. I didn't actually have a chance to do the tallies on flip count like I have for some of these other fights. Just because I haven't had a chance to rewatch it yet, so I don't know the exact batting average with Lucky's flips here. But there were some crazy flips. That was for damn sure. I was a little worried that, Crash and Burn, very well-driven cluster bots, some of the best-driven cluster bots in the world. I thought they were going to make a pretty solid impression here on Lucky. They were going to be able to corner the robot a lot, lift it around, keep it, out of trouble. Not so much. This was very much shades of Lucky versus Gemini, going back to BattleBots 2018 Desperado. Lucky just turned to one, chucked it, turned to the other, chucked it, went back to one, chucked it. There were a few times where they were able to corner, Crash and Burn were able to corner Lucky, get them up onto a robot. But then at one point, it was funny. One of the commentators compared it to Cesaro. Lucky was like trying to do a spin move to get off the top of Burn, the blue cluster bot. Burn was spinning around, Lucky was spinning around, and somehow Lucky did this crazy fucking tornado move to get off of Burn. Very impressive showing, but it is what it is. Still, a good run for both these robots, but Lucky does win the judge's decision, which means, you know what, let's go ahead and pull it up right now. We talked about it on Robot Combat tonight. These are the TCC overall rankings right now for 2023. This factors in BattleBots. This factors in Vengeance of Vegas when that happens. This factors in the Extreme Robots event, which happened in November. And this factors in Golden Bolts when that happens. This factors in RoboGames, of course. So every fight up to this day, up to BattleBots, everything's up to date on this list. Who's number 1? By over 10 points. Well, not over 10 points now, because Malice is now number 2. We'll get to that. Lucky. Lucky is now, it's kind of crazy. When I envisioned this yesterday, I said Riptide's going to go so far in this tournament. They're going to break away from the TCC top rankings, set themselves 20 points apart from number 2. Might be Lucky doing it instead after the victory against Shredded Bro, the victory against Crash and Burn, the victory against Whiplash. That's 3 wins in 2 days. 20 points they've gone up. And now they're number 1. By a lot. It is insane. We'll see what happens. Malice versus Lucky could very well be a battle for TCC number 1 if they do end up meeting in bracket, and they very well may. Let's see where they sit on the bracket. Ooh, they're taking on Mad Catter next. I don't think that fight has happened. Let's do a quick research. Let's do a quick search here. You feel like you know all the fights, but now that we've had 7 freaking seasons of BattleBots, it's also like, what has happened? Because I know Lucky was also at RoboGames, but I don't remember who they fought. Oh well, maybe they didn't. That could be a first-time matchup, maybe something for the BattleBots team to watch out for if they want to do a rematch. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. The way Mad Catter got to that fight was by taking on a brand new robot called the Emperor. Now, I already talked about this on Robot Combat tonight, but I'll mention it here. This was when we were doing our day 1 live stream, this robot was still unknown. We didn't think this robot would actually compete. We were wrong. Emperor comes from Youngstown College in Ohio, and it is beautiful. It is the hybrid. It is the love child of Endgame and an Emperor Penguin. It is sleek. It has some great wedgelets up front. It has 2-wheel drive now. It was 4-wheel drive, but after this Mad Catter fight, that changed. It has a very, very, very beautiful vertical spinner, which is designed to look like a penguin's head with the beak. It's such a nice-looking robot, and they didn't do too well here. For your first fight, you're going to have gremlins. I mean, just look at Valkyrie's first fight against Ultimo Destructo. That was embarrassing. This was kind of like its Valkyrie Ultimo Destructo here for the Emperor. They didn't get out of the square. Mad Catter box rushed them, ripped off one of the wedgelets, pulled him towards the middle of the arena, ripped off a wheel, tap out. One of the things I got to mention with this fight is that at this point, I will say, RoboGames did paint the arena, got it looking pristine for this second day of competition. I was worried about that. It wasn't dusty. First day of action, they hadn't had the arena painted, dust everywhere. And for the Emperor, this robot has a lot of holes in it, and not figuratively, like literally. Every single panel of armor on this robot looks like Swiss cheese. I'm guessing before the events, maybe even entering the event, they were dealing with some serious weight issues, which caused them to pretty much make their robot a living vent. You could literally see through the robot in some areas. And when the arena was dusty like it was during that fight against Cataclysm or Mad Catter, you're going to deal with some issues. You're going to have stuff get caught up in the internals and the wiring and everything, and that might have hurt Emperor big time. So Emperor went on to the loser's bracket, had a decent fight against Puck. We'll talk about that in a minute. Now we go on to, yes, that second fight Hexadecimator had versus Doom. Now this was a very interesting development. When we were waiting for RoboGames to start on day one, like I said, I was on that Zeta Gator live stream. And Amkid, an IRL Twitch streamer, which is at the event, has been showing a lot of footage of the event from his point of view, which has been awesome. Shouts to you, Amkid. And he was going through the pits fairly quickly, and while he was going through them, there was a robot which looked like Doom that he passed. And I was like, what? Was that Doom? There's very few robots that look like Doom. You know what I mean? So when you see it, you're like, what? Wait, why is that there? Apparently Doom was a very, very, very last second entry, and good for David Calkins. He definitely needed a couple of those after the amount of pullouts this event has had. It's good that he could secure another BattleBots level combatant, last second. That was a good plus for him. Unfortunately, the robot was dealing with more internal issues and build up to their first fight. And we kind of saw those issues play out during this matchup against Hexy. Doom got that weapon spinning up a couple of times, but never was able to land a strike. They only managed one strike to the top of Hexadecimator during the whole fight, and then that was one with the weapon turned off. They just kind of went, bump, just sort of gave the top of Hexy a love tap. The most offensive move Hexadecimator suffered in this fight was to itself when it got itself caught under the wall. But like I mentioned when we were talking about Hexy at the top of the episode, they were caught under the wall, and they have to have made this flipper more powerful. This flipper is suddenly up to modern standards. They were able to buck themselves out of the arena wall, nearly do an entire 360 flip, was able to self-right themselves, something that Hexadecimator has had issues with in the past, and win the fight. They threw over Doom a couple of times, and Doom literally shit itself and died. Batteries started flying out. ESC started flying out. A massive fire inside the arena. Biggest fire of RoboGames so far. Hexadecimator literally beat Doom to a pulp. This is a robot from 2001 sending a robot from 2022 packing. I mean, this was such a beatdown, it would not surprise me if Doom has to forfeit during its losers bracket matchup. And speaking of forfeits, let's just go ahead and jump over to LazyBot versus Terratops so we can do a nice transition here. Terratops, holy shit. Outside of Hexadecimator, if there's one robot, one heavyweight, which has shocked the world during this tournament, it has been Terratops. My goodness. Its first fight against LazyBot was an interesting one. Of course, LazyBot coming from Micah Chewy Lebowitz. He is a very, very much acclaimed welder in the robot combat world. Online, he's a bit of a controversial figure. He has a tendency not to be the most lovely person to other online people, but that's neither here nor there. He is most well known for being a builder of some very fun robots. In past RoboGames and Combot Cup events, we have seen this guy make a doghouse on wheels. We have seen this guy make a coffin on wheels that had a literal Muppet Dracula come out of the top of it with a flamethrower. We have seen this guy put a TV on wheels. Most notably and most recently in 2011, we saw him make a rebuild of the Bud Light mini fridge. In 2017-2018, we saw them do the Rick and Morty Butterbot in the middleweight class. So when there was a couch, a picture of a recliner on the RoboGames sign-up at the very start from Team Tiki called LazyBot, everybody Everybody got their hopes up, myself included. I said on multiple RoboGames previews, dude, we are going to have a couch on wheels for RoboGames. This thing is going to get set on fire. It's going to get torn apart. It's going to be cool. What the fuck was that, Chewy? I'm sorry. Excuse my language. But they were pulling in Terratops into the arena. In the background, you can see this gray thing with two awkwardly shaped orange wheels on it in the background. It looked like the robot hadn't finished rendering yet. It looked like it was just sitting back there, like waiting for you to get closer to it so it can generate more polygons. And then they zoomed in on this fucking thing. Two wheels, the most depressing wedge, a silver body. Maybe when it was called LazyBot, it was because the builder was being lazy building it. I don't know. There was no way in hell this thing weighed 250 pounds. There had to have been some last-minute issue that stopped him from doing what he wanted to do. But, I mean, come on, Chewy. You literally had a year, half a year, to put a sofa recliner on a box with wheels and pedal it out to the arena. And you didn't. You didn't. You break my heart. So, for that, Chewy's reward was one of the biggest ass beatings in the entire tournament. Terratops, you need to go back and watch this fight. That's just the best way I can put it. Just go back and watch this fight. Terratops spiked LazyBot into the ceiling 2, maybe even 3 times. And after the final coup de grace strike, LazyBot was literally warped. The entire chassis was, well, it looked like that. It looked like a grip and grappler after you break it. In fact, yeah, you know what? It's fitting because Micah Chewy owns Vlad the Impaler, so this is perfect. LazyBot went from this. Didn't break as smoothly as I thought. To that. This is what LazyBot is now. Dead. Just like that. I would say I feel bad, but I don't. I wanted a sofa on wheels. Terratops is an absolute beast, and that sets it up for a fight against White Rabbit. But let's go back to Banana Runt versus Manta here, because you want to talk about breakout performances. I guess I shouldn't count Manta out of what Hexadecimator and Terratops have been doing, because I think this robot's going to be at BattleBots next year. Like I mentioned, we talked about this robot when it was called Drago during our first ever applicant rundown. I actually joked about it on Pori's little server this morning while I co-host. Both of us said that there was no chance Drago would get in. So after that performance, I'll go ahead and say it. You can blame us. You can blame us for why Drago didn't get in to BattleBots 2022. It could have been the giant nut holder right now. It very well could have been, because, my God, that was brutal. Banana Runt, a.k.a. Big Dill, is not a flimsy robot. It is not a weak robot. It sometimes goes down to some pretty powerful opponents like Bloodsport, like Mad Catter, but it is not a glass cannon by any means. The side armor is good. That front plow was good. Those front forks can take a beating. You would not have known that from this Manta fight. This robot looks like it's been fighting at RoboGames for the past 10 years. It charged Banana Runt, Big Dill, whatever you want to call it, put that robot into quite a pickle, got right under it, and just went, just tore apart the underside of Big Dill. Some of the most violent sparks we've seen in a robot combat fight all year coming out of the underbelly of Big Dill. And that was just the start. That was just the peak of this fight. By the end of this matchup, I can't go through a mental play-by-play. I've only seen the fight once, but the forks bent beyond repair. Both those big side protecting panels that keep the wheels safe on Big Dill ripped clean off. Both the right side wheels after the fact, after the panels were taken off, the right side wheels on Big Dill also ripped off. Big Dill didn't tap out, by the way. Shouts to Emmanuel Carrillo. He didn't hear no bell. He was going till the very end. But, my God, violence. Absolute violence here by Manta, Team Tanto. If the BattleBots team was there, they have to be looking at Hexadecimator and Manta's performances and go, huh, we need some newcomers next year. No one's coming to Destructathon. Maybe this is what we need. Maybe these are our newcomers that we're going to bring in. These are top 50 level robots, maybe. I mean, shit. They're top 50 right now on TCC overall ranking. Hexadecimator is number 10 in the world right now according to our rankings. I know our rankings ain't perfect, but I kind of love it. Manta not too far behind with 8 points. A lot of robots have 8 points, of course. That means you only have one knockout. But hey, credit to them. They are, let's see, Manta's 24, Manta's 40. 16 points higher than the British Manta, another very acclaimed robot, which had an awful start to its year. At Extreme Robots. Hopefully they'll have a better further apart. And, while we're here, let's just take a look. Other robots that are in the rankings. As I said, Mal is sitting at 28. We'll talk about that robot here in just a second. Raging Scotsman also nearby with 16 points, 2 knockouts under its belt. Terratops, 10 points. Stink Eye, 6 points. Original Sin, 2 points. Puck, -2 points. So, Lazy Bot, -8 points. Whiplash, still sitting in a -16. Did not fight yesterday, worth noting. So that's kind of where some of the robots sit. Let's go back to this bracket. We talked about Lazy Bot, Terratops. We talked about Big Dill Manta. White Rabbit, Original Sin, our last winners round 2 fight to talk about here. Of course, after Riptide pulled out, I made a bold prediction saying Original Sin would go on for a 4-peat here. Maybe Gary Jin's just losing its touch. I don't know, man, because Original Sin got a beating here. I mean, Original Sin even used its signature anti-horizontal spinner plow, a plow we've seen them use in the past against the likes of Tombstone at BattleBots. Last rights at RoboGames. Thought it would do well, but Bunny was on top of it. And you know what? A lot of shade's been thrown at Bunny's weapon by us at the Combot Collective over the past few weeks. But after this performance against Gruff, we saw yesterday, day before yesterday now, what we see at Destructathon, and now after 2 fights at RoboGames, I think I'm finally going to shut up about this Malice weapon. Obviously, a lot can happen in the BattleBots playoffs. You're taking on the best competition in the world. It shouldn't be that surprising if we see another Malice weapon death early, but I'm not going to be as hard on them now, because from what I'm seeing in the past, 6 of 8 fights I've seen them in, if you include the meetings like Malice versus Kraken, Malice versus Overkill on top of that, that weapon's back, dude. This whole fight, Malice's weapon from point A to point B did not die. It was perfectly fine. They struck it again and again and again and again. Original Sin lost 2 of its wheels. The other 2 wheels were completely flat. Original Sin looked a lot like how Starchild did after the Gigabyte fight. Just a flat husk of a robot, which somehow still worked. Yes, this fight did go to the judge's decision. If you know Original Sin, or you know free shipping, or you know Gary Jin, his robots don't die unless you take every single wheel off. And that didn't happen here. Original Sin lost, but it lost valiantly. That being said, Original Sin now has to go on one hell of a loser's run if it wants to become a 4-time straight RoboGames Heavyweight Champion. And that set us up for the, what is this? Winners quarterfinals for the this side of the bracket. Chaos 3 versus Raging Scotsman, which did happen, as I mentioned. Not really much to talk about there. Raging Scotsman pretty much just bullied around Chaos 3. Not a fight to write home about. Chaos's 3's drive worked a little bit longer in this fight, but not by too much. I mean, it probably went, half a fight. They really weren't able to get much offense on the much lower built Raging Scotsman. So the Scott bot advanced there. Maybe it's their year that they finally win a RoboGames championship. I mean, shit. Prometheus, very underwhelming 2-wheel drive wedge bots from RoboGames past. Can get second. I think Raging Scotsman can get a silver medal. Lucky is going to be taking on Cataclysm. We already just talked about that. HexED is going to be taking on Manta. Battle of the Breakouts. And just pray for Hexadecimator. I don't want to see that beautiful old robot get hexadecimated. I want to see it go far. Maybe it can win the ground game and surprise everybody here. Let's see it, Uda. Terratops versus White Rabbit, though. Let's talk about that fight. I mean, just like Terratops versus Lazy Bot, I don't know if I can describe this. If you're here and you somehow haven't watched RoboGames yet, just go to the channel, or even better, go to the subreddit, because there have been some awesome people who have linked out every single fight in a separate Twitch clip highlight. you'll be able to see the post easily. Just go to the RoboGames discussion thread on the BattleBot subreddit and find the post with all the links, and you'll see it there. Watch this fight because, you know what, in fact, let me just put it on here. If there's one fight worth putting on the screen, it's this one. A lot of discussion on the RoboGames discussion thread on the subreddit. I am so excited to see this event get that kind of buzz. Yeah, here they are. Let's see what we got. It's buried in here somewhere. Here we are. What an excellent fight this was. I mean, both Terratops and White Rabbit's, Malice's weapon, they did not want to die for pretty much the entire fight. We would see Terratops lose its weapon about 2 minutes, a little over halfway into the fight. They turned it off, turned it on a couple of times, but it just kept on going, just kept on trucking. They even managed to take off one of those bunny ear wedgelets off Malice early on in the fight. But really, I mean, what you're seeing right here, this is a lot of the fight. Malice just ripping and tearing away at what they can with Terratops here. Terratops was quite excited about this fight because apparently this was their first time they were able to use their anti-horizontal spinner plow, which we see here in this fight. Worked pretty well. Got to give him credit. That thing is eating strikes like it's its job. Didn't get ripped off. Showed a lot of toughness here. And you'll see later on in the fight, I'll go ahead and let it run from point A to point B. What an action-packed fight. When they did finally lose their weapon here, they said, fuck it. I mean, that's even what Brendan Burton said. We said, screw it. Let's just throw the wedges out there and try to fight them with the lifter. What's the worst that can happen? Because we aren't winning like a push bot. And here we go. Those lifters got torn up big time. But watch this move at the end of the fight. One of the most badass suplexes I have ever seen a robot pull off. And to pull it off with a lifter that is in such a state of disarray. Holy shit. I mean, they almost got closer. Look at that lifter on Terratops. That thing is like, it is not good. The things they were able to pull off in this fight were wonderful. I want to see that suplex. I don't want to turn my head till I see that suplex because I don't want to miss it. But, I mean, let's just talk about some of the best fights we've had this year. Emulsifier versus Fusion. Minotaur versus Cobalt. Fusion versus Witch Doctor. Some other really good ones. Those are the three that really stick off at the top of my head. Put this one up there, dude. This was a banger. One of the best heavyweight fights I have ever seen. One of the best heavyweight fights, period, this year. We finally saw a little bit of drive issue in the final minute, as we can see with Terratops. It still didn't stop them. And look at Malice's weapon. It's almost like a cryptid, seeing it still go full bore, full power till the very end of the fight. Look at this suplex. It grabs the hooky thingy at the end and just more of like a back body drop. Then they were able to drive Malice all around the arena. I am just orgasming about this fight because this was such a wonderful matchup. One of my favorite fights this year. Maybe my favorite fight this year. What an absolute banger of a matchup that was. All right, I'm done gushing. We'll go back to the bracket now. Watch it again and watch it again after that. It's on their Twitch. What an excellent showdown of competitors. And that's where we sit now. We have White Rabbit taking on the winner of Manta and Hexadecimator. Very anticipated battle. Another very anticipated battle. Lucky versus Cataclysm. Chaos 3 versus Raging Scotsman. Let's look at the losers bracket real quick. Our last group of fights to talk about here. Bullion versus Original Sin went about how you expected it. Bullion got bullied by Original Sin. Gary definitely had a chip on his shoulder after that bad loss against Malice. A lot of people, myself included, expected that to be a big-time win for free shipping. Original Sin. These names are killing me. This name, Flippy Doodah bullcrap, it's killing me, dude. Bullion ended up going down by knockout here. It just shows you how determined Gary Jin was to pick up the pace. Highlight of the fight was definitely a full-on slam to the side of Bullion, coast to coast, right into the arena spike strips. That pretty much buckled and annihilated Bullion's left wheel, left it dead in the water for the KO. That sent Bullion home. I believe the first robot to be sent home in this tournament. Original Sin is going to be fighting LazyBot next, but just like Zeta Gator said, Dracophile said when I was hanging out with him on stream yesterday, there's no way that robot's coming back. That is a forfeit if I've ever seen one. I'm leaning towards that. That robot was folded like a deck of cards. Whomper versus Banana Runt should be another exciting judo battle. I'm very curious to see if we are going to see that Whiplash spinner during this event, or if Whomper, aka Whiplash, is going to be running just the lifter for this event, 2021 style. We saw Banana Runt take out Whiplash's sibling Defender pretty easily, I gotta say. It was a close fight, but not close as in, like, back and forth. Just not much happened, and when it did happen, it was big deals doing. We'll see if that happens again. Those robots have never fought before. Kevin Lilly saying in the chat, Scotsman looked kind of sad without fire. I have to agree. And same with Crash and Burn. I mean, even the even the team behind Crash and Burn were like, I'm not going to say anything, but we probably would have won that fight if we had our fire. I'm just saying, and hey, they might be right. Even if it doesn't do the most damage, the judges love it. And if you can show, hey, we are torching this robot, might not be doing much, but we're torching them, those fans are going ooh and ah. The judges like that stuff. It shows control. It shows aggression. It just shows the tiniest bit of damage, even if a little bit. It's a bummer. Speaking of Crash and Burn, they're going to be taking on King Crab next, the other team, Fast Electric Robotics Machine. Jason Vasquez is going to have a handful trying a single clamp both of those robots at once. Could be hard for him to keep up with it, Defender, a.k.a. King Crab. Not the quickest mover in terms of its control game. But, we haven't really seen Defender do to a robot like they've always wanted it to do. Get that full body lift on and drag him around the arena. We haven't seen them do that. I mean, sure, we've seen them pick up some wins against the likes of Riptide and stuff, but was it because of those things? It was because they just pushed better, I guess. I don't know. Taking on a 120-pound robot like Crash or Burn, I think we could see that full body suplex kind of lift that Jason Vasquez wants to pull off so badly here. I would like to see it. We'll see how it goes. So that's what we have for that. Original Sin versus LazyBot. Whomper versus Banana Runt. Winner of that will take on Doom if they can get that robot working. So Doom is going to be fighting a BattleBots robot up next. There we go. Puck versus Emperor. We talked earlier about General versus Who's Your Daddy. Did not agree with that judge's decision. The spinner definitely won that fight. Same thing here. Go watch this fight and tell me, which of these two robots won? Is it the robot still driving around with its spinning weapon, or is it the robot half driving around with its wedge literally peeled upwards like a cheese grater? I don't know how you can call this, like a rolled paper towel. I don't know. This was a brutal fight for Puck. Emperor finally showed off like what it can do here. That weapon is vicious. That penguin beak blade is vicious on Emperor. They went from four-wheel drive to two-wheel drive in this fight, using the front wheels only to keep themselves balanced. That was a bit of a bold choice. I didn't know how I felt about it at first, but it worked out great. Emperor was moving fantastically for the first half of this fight. Definitely slowed down in the second half. First round, first robot woes are going to happen, but Emperor still dominated most of this fight. Stayed aggressive, landed strike after strike after strike after strike to Puck. Puck definitely was shaped more like a puck than a wedge coming into this fight. It looked like a Techno Games football configuration. It was so torn up and peeled upwards at the front. Puck won on a JD. Puck won on a JD. Like, at least with the Who's Your Daddy fight, that robot, had some good shoves in there, some good slams, some good rams. Puck really didn't do too much. It pushed a little bit. It showed some aggression, but it just, I don't know how it won this fight. I really don't know how it won this fight. We should be talking about Emperor versus the winner of King Crab and Crash and Burn right now, but we aren't. It sucks. It's a shame that such a beautiful, destructive robot, even if it is just another vert, is out so early. Feel bad for the Youngstown College kids. hopefully we can see them again soon. You know, I don't know if there's going to be any other full combat events happening around the U.S. We know Destructathon's doing events, but none of these walk-in robots are showing up to them. They need to organize a walk-in event or something because no one wants to go out and fight these fucking 350-pound robots with a 200-pound machine. It's just not going to happen. Puck did advance, though. They're going to take on the winner of King Crab versus Crash and Burn. And then we have our last heavyweight fight to talk about here. So disappointed with that Emperor fight. Even the main commentator, the guy in the glasses with the blue sweater at RoboGames, he's always a commentator. He's been a RoboGames official, the host of the main arena for over a decade now. I don't know his name. I do apologize. He is incredibly knowledgeable on RoboGames, but I mean, he always makes the claim. He made a claim for both this Puck fight and the Who's Your Daddy Now fight, and he said, you know what? I don't know if this is a open shut judging decision. I think that Puck or Who's Your Daddy might have won this fight. And each time I was like, boy, you're just trying to be nice. Get out of here. But each time he was right, so I think it's not him like thinking that. I think he's just trying to warn us now at this point. He's like, you guys got to remember, this is RoboGames ruling here. This is anti-BattleBots, baby. We love wedges. Yes, we do. We love wedges. How about you? That's what happened there, I think. Disappointing. Emperor out at 0-2, joining the likes of, well, Bullion so far and Bullion only. Really disappointing. Oh, and Piranha. Yeah, let's talk about this. This is a good final fight to discuss here. Piranha versus Stink Eye. I mean, is this not what we wanted? We wanted some spicy tea. We wanted some drama for your llama. And we got it here with the final heavyweight fight of day 2. It was, one second, my dog's trying to leave the room. You want to go about, fella? Can't hold my dog hostage now, can I? Piranha? Yeah, Piranha versus Stink Eye. We wanted to see this. It is, I mean, obviously we wanted to see Swamp Thing versus Tombstone, but, you know, we'll take this for now. Swamp Thing versus Stink Eye. The Killer S's go into battle here. Both these robots, 2-wheel drive with a big wedge on the front and a vertical spinner in the middle. Stink Eye, a bit of a bigger vertical spinner, while Swamp Things is obviously known to be a gut ripper. That's what Rick Russ calls it. And we always have this little model of ankle biter here when we talk about Rick Russ's Swamp Thing. Pretty much just like that. Just a tiny little vertical spinner shoved right into the core of the wedge. Both wedges ended up being a bit too steep. We talked about that a little bit already with the Stink Eye Chaos fight. Speaking of that fight, no Stink Eye on Stink Eye this time. It was just a classic 2-wheel drive vertical spinner with the wedge. Shades of Brutus. No fun gimmicks on the robot now. They also tried adding a pair of wedgelets to this machine. You could tell they were very last second, though, because they pretty much got bent beyond repair. Within seconds, really. Didn't last long at all and ended up actually hindering the ground game here for Swamp Thing. I'm sorry for Stink Eye. And this ended up not being that good of a fight. I hate to say it. Neither robot managed to land a hit. Both robots drove each other around, pushing each other back and forth, and then Swamp Thing got stuck into the fucking wall again. Oh my god. That beak thing at the front isn't a bad idea, but in the RoboGames arena it apparently is, because, I mean, oh my god. It took them another 5 minutes to get this robot free. Not as hard this time. It wasn't in there nearly as far. It just took them, a little bit of wiggling. Funny thing, though, they got it free. They tried pushing it back to where it was. Immediately got it stuck again. It took them another 2 minutes to get it out. How do you get that thing? How does that thing get stuck so easily? It's impressive. It's like magnetic. I don't know. You would definitely watch Piranha avoid the walls like a plague for the rest of the fight. We'd see Piranha manage one solid push of offense after this happened. Piranha has a steep wedge, but with Stink Eye's main weapon pretty much blocked due to the bent up wedgelets, Piranha was able to get under Stink Eye for one solid arena slam right into the wall. But then Piranha pretty much became dead on arrival a little bit after that. Wasn't moving well at all. Ray Billings even turned off his weapon, yelled out loud, I am turning off my weapon. It does still work, so we're all clear. Smart, to be honest. It was quiet, so we all heard him. Got the message across. They knew the weapon wasn't dead, and the fight went on. And yeah, on a very underwhelming judge's decision, Stink Eye did advance. Piranha out of the competition, got eliminated by his rival in Ray Billings. Which, by the way, I didn't want to see Ray Billings and Rick Russ fight each other in the arena or anything, but I was a little bit bummed when they hugged. I was like, "Ow, come on. Don't act all sweet once you're face to face. Let's get some angry fists shaking at each other or something. I don't know. Y'all don't need to throw shit at each other, but let's spice it up here. Let's not be all cutesy." But nonetheless, yes, Swamp Thing eliminated 0-2. Got stuck in the wall both of its fights. Lost to a wedge pretty much both the fights. Only managed one solid strike with that gut-ripping vertical spinner, and it was barely even noticed. Disappointing, but that's where we sit right now. Stink Eye will be taking on the winner, or I should say the loser, of B3, which would be... if it wants to let me zoom out. Oh, come on. Take on the loser of Hexadecimator versus Manta. So if Hexy D can make it out of this Manta fight not too damaged, they're in a good spot. They're in a good spot to go far. I think they can beat Stink Eye. I don't know if they can beat the Terratops, but they can beat Stink Eye. Make it decently far into this bracket. We'll see how it goes. I'm still incredibly impressed with how Hexy D is done. But I think that's going to do it for us looking at these heavyweight, lightweight, and middleweight brackets. Before we go ahead and send everybody home, because I do actually have to be at work here pretty soon, my actual job. Let's take a peek at the Discord communities real quick and see if I can find a lightweight bracket anywhere. I'm sorry, an antweight, beetleweight, anything bracket for the ROBOGAMES event. There's a good picture of the Emperor for those who haven't seen it somehow, or haven't seen a good HD picture of it. The robot looks amazing, does it not? I mean, holy shit. The penguin beak blade is creative. The googly eyes are fun. Coals and wheels. Looks solid. ROBOGAMES Day 1. There's an update from Wormhole, Steven. I'm sorry you guys had to hear that. Are we going to get brackets? No, still no brackets. Come on. It's a bummer seeing all these robots that were originally signed up. Oh. Nemesis. The Iran robot. K-Torze. Ragnar. Asterion. Ranasanga. That robot's another solid Indian robot right there. Sweet, of course. That's a bummer. Sarkel. Mozart. That was supposed to be an old school team signed up. Kronos. Maharana. And don't even get me started on the heavyweight bracket. I am kind of curious what happened to a lot of these robots. Snakebite, Anti-Homogeny. I mean, Double Trouble, Dawnbreaker, Bigfoot. A lot of these robots seemed like till the very last second they were still intending to show up. Apparently El Tortuga was going to be shell-shocked, by the way. That was a surprise to me. Ice Wave 2? Where the hell did Ice Wave went? You thought they would be dead set on trying to show up to this event after missing BattleBots. It's all very bizarre. I don't know. I don't know if we have a bracket to the smaller classes anywhere. Well, I'm not going to try to spend too much time digging for it. Not NHL events. Shouts to AmKid, by the way. That dude has provided quality content the entire weekend. I don't think it's been shouted out enough. Totally not happy after D1 at RoboGames. So I'm guessing that means Wormhole, our boy Wormhole, the One Combat Collective, is chosen as the chosen one. Not looking too good after fighting a Kitbot in one of the 3-pound class. Doesn't look like too much. I wish there was a RoboGames server. Maybe there is. Oh, wow. Apparently we had Mondo Bizarro versus Wormhole. That's a pretty good fight. Apparently we're also seeing some forks get stuck in the walls during a lot of these small bots fights as well. Got stuck before his first fight began. Well, I guess it's better than mid-fight, huh? That's such a good thing. Business Cat's always got the good memes. Yeah, there we go. I'm sorry, I went quiet there. Just trying to find some more leads before we head out. I wanted to get him a picture of LazyBot after that fight. Oh my god, look at this! I couldn't describe this. This describes it better than any way I could have. Look at that damage. And someone else brought it up here in this NHRL chat. There's no way LazyBot was 250 pounds. I refuse to believe it. Another funny thing that we learned about the Emperor. I guess I should bring this up because this was a funny story commentary shed. The Emperor apparently is made out of a mystery meat. It's made out of a mystery metal. They do not know what it is. Apparently, they had a source, a metal company. One of the guys, the team members knew, that had a bunch of metal they were trying to get rid of. They said, "We don't know what this metal is, but it doesn't bend well. Would you like it?" And they were like, "Of course." So it could be aluminum. It could be AR500. Could be polycarbonate with a little cloak on for all we know. It seemed to hold up pretty well. I'll give it some credit. It wasn't the thing that broke on Emperor, that's for sure. Oh, okay. So there we go. We're getting more bracket updates here. Mondo Bizarro actually fought Lynx, apparently. Mondo Bizarro beat Wormhole, lost to Lynx. There's a little bit of a bracket. I mean, those are my 3 picks to win the bracket. Lynx, though, probably is taking his damn thing. It's Lynx. Come on. Oh, yes. Thank God. A Beetleweight bracket. Yes. Only 20 robots? You would think they'd have a lot more than 20 robots. And big shocker. Look who's in the winners finals before anybody else. So they're already almost done with this Beetleweight tournament. That's a little bit surprising. They got 2 more days, and we got what? 1, 2, 3, 4 fights. Looks like Wormhole did finally go out. Oh, bummer. What's the final record for our boy, Wormhole? 1-0, 2-0, 2-1. Losing to Mondo Bizarro is nothing to be ashamed of, though. 2-2. Bummer. Kill Cake. I've never heard of Kill Cake before. Got to admit. Good to see Samurai went a little bit far. I've heard a little bit about Manchild. I'm surprised it's gone as far as it has. Other robots, though, these names don't really raise much interest in me. I will be honest, just because of NHRL bias, we get more info from them. I am not nearly as savvy as I am on the 3-pounders of the West Coast as I am the small bots of the East Coast and the Midwest because of MRCA. A lot of names I do not recognize here. Let's see if these guys have the ant weight and flea weight brackets, though, before we head out of here. Doesn't look like it. Oh, I lied. Look at this. We will get to see everything. Looking at the flea weights first, I wish I didn't have to turn my head because I know you guys can't hear me that well when I turn my head. We got Dust Bunny. Dust Bunny, I believe, is from Team Scorpius, Team Bot Bash. They're all the way in the winners finals already. That's interesting. Kowalski, which is pretty much a 150-gram equivalent of General, Federal MT, Black Dragon, the signature Uriah design. Beat Assassin Bug, lost to Tooth Fairy, and then lost to Leftovers. So 1-2. Not the best year for Uriah. Stonks, of course, my pick to win this. Not here. Angry Paperweight. Leftovers. I think Guaga Anubis is a Mexican robot, but I might be wrong. No Fly Zone is a very old school robot. Very cool to see them in the field. Lost to Green Lion and then won a few fights. Actually still in the bracket, fighting Tooth Fairy today. Looks like we're down to 5 robots in this flea weight bracket. And then let's look at the ant weights, because this is what I want to know. I want to know how my Japanese team has done. Because we know Nebo Man's there. Here it is. Oh, it lost to Thagomizer in its first fight. I gotta look up that fight because Thagomizer is a good robot. Very cool. Nebo Man, their other robot, a 2-wheel drive pusher. Also 0-1. What they do in the second round? Oh, by the way, Night Force showed up. Night Force showed up. This is interesting because that's actually from Robotic Death Company. Good to see they made it with some robots. It's a shame they didn't make it with Megabyte. The event certainly could have used it. Bummer. The Japanese team went 0-4. Oh, man. I wanted them to do well. I wanted them to take a bronze medal home. I mean, I know it's not the easiest thing to do. We got machines like, of course, Night Force, Thagomizer, who, by the way, are fighting today. If you're watching the Malice stream, that's definitely a matchup to look out for. The Bomb, another team Scorpius robot, apparently had some hype entering this event. Already out of the tournament. I saw a little bit of Wedge 1, Wedge 2 on the live streams. Launchpad McWhack is here. Looks like they went 1-2, I'd have to guess. I don't know. I think that is going to wrap it up for us, though. We've covered about everything we have to talk about here at RoboGames now. I mean, look at all of this. I guess we can look over to TCC's main page feed real quick, see if there's any developments or news on there. I'm sorry, I just blew all of our eardrums out, including my own. Let's just kill that. Jesus, Murphy. Good picture of Swamp Thing's little beak wedgelet right there. Poor Crash and Burn. Well, where are all the horizontals? You have Malice. You might fight Malice before his event's over. You got that. Yeah. There's a good shot of how good Lucky's flipper is. I didn't realize, I could have sworn I heard one of the commentators say that they ceilinged one of the Crash and Burn robots, but I wasn't sure if that was true or not. It looks like it was. Mother of God. My goodness. Of course, some of the Japanese build robots. You know, that was another fun thing. We saw them appear at the end of the stream, around the end yesterday. They had some of the humanoid roboteers from Japan come on, do an interview. One of them had, it might have been one of those two right there. It was a humanoid silver robot. The other guy had a little dice robot. It looked like he just carried a dice around for the whole interview. And I was like, my dude really came from Japan with his little dice. Traveled all the way from Japan, 14-hour flight to bring home, show everyone his dice. And then this thing turned into a Transformer robot. So Japan people are fucking awesome. Already a lot of damage to the arena. After it's starting off looking like that. Goodness gracious. Definitely a lot of great fights. Professor Scrap definitely not serving damage, even if ROBOGAMES is lying to all of us. I think, though, to cap it off here, we all got to admit one thing, and that is that, well, there was one highlight to ROBOGAMES Day 2, and that was at 3 o'clock, they went on an hour intermission. They inexplicably came back from the hour intermission to show a robot that looked like a giant phallus balloon driving around the arena. No elaboration for why this robot was in the arena. It was there for about 5 minutes, and then they went on intermission for another 20 minutes. That was peak, quite frankly. That was Robot Combat at its finest. I'm kidding, of course, but I am going to wrap it up here. This has been Sterling Brown at the Combot Collective. We have discussed a lot of fights, and there's still a lot of fights to come. Be sure to tune into ROBOGAMES again around 2:30, 3:30, maybe even 4:40. You know how these guys are. Central Standard Time, 12 to 1:30 p.m. local time in California. I'm rocking the California jacket here. It's a little chilly in Texas. Maybe I'll wear the Dodgers jersey since it'll be warmer tomorrow for our post-game show. I wore it during Robot Combat tonight, but I forgot to mention it. I'm trying a California dream right now with all this merch I've been wearing. Thank you guys, though, so much for watching. Wasn't as big of a crowd as our first show, but that's all good. You know, we've all seen what has happened. You don't need me to tell you what's happened. But at least this is going to hold up. If you look at that morning show we did the day before yesterday, a lot of that stuff isn't actually news anymore since a lot of those bots have pulled out. Brackets were reshuffled and everything. But I digress. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. To everyone that tuned into the chat today, Chad New, Team Widowmaker, Kevin Lilly, anyone else that watched, we got 6 people on right now. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will be back tomorrow night for our final live stream of ROBOGAMES Weekend. It has been an awesome event so far. Even with the delays, we've seen some amazing fights, some amazing moments, some amazing new robots, of course, copyright infringement, the Emperor, Manta, Hexadecimator, story of the event for me, along with Cornholio and Team Wetware's comeback. It's good to see the old guys do good. But yes, I am Sterling Brown. You know the Combot Collective. We're sponsored as always by robotsruinmylife.com. You can find them in the link below. They are the merchandise provider for numerous East Coast Robot Combat teams. We'll be doing another giveaway with them very soon. And, of course, our Instagram, our Facebook, also in the description below. You can find out about our live streams, our videos, Robot Combat news there. We also have a Discord server. If you were wondering where our live stream was yesterday, it was exclusive to the Discord server. It was an episode of Robot Combat Tonight. That will be on the YouTube page later on this week. But for now, it sits there. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here, though. Enjoy ROBOGAMES Day 3 and Day 4. Enjoy your Easter tomorrow. Have fun with your families. Hunt some eggs. Eat some chocolate. Have an awesome dinner. We'll go ahead and see you guys tomorrow night. Late o'clock. I'm excited. It's going to give my voice a little bit of time to rest. I need that. I sound hoarser than a Clydesdale right now. But yes, thank you all so much. I'm going to get out of here. This has been the Combot Collective. Day 3, ROBOGAMES Live. We'll see you next time.